Hey, basketball families, it's Coach Jay.
And Coach Will.
Today we want to talk about something that we've heard a lot about over the years, and that is what sorts of activities create the best opportunity for a player to improve. Because we have heard more times than there are stars in the sky that kids need to play to get better. Of course they need to play to get better.
Sure.
But we want to just go ahead and address that, because sometimes people start doing workouts and then they really just get super itchy to play. And then when they start playing, they are not that good yet.
Right.
So we want to identify 5 settings that we think a well-rounded player needs to play in. And up front, I'll say that we think, from what we've gathered over the years, we think that players need to play against better competition, equal competition, and worse competition. It's not the level of competition.
Absolutely.
You need all of them.
Yes.
Because you'll make attempts at different things against each one. So we're encouraging people, stop thinking about that as in such a simplistic way.
Yeah.
If we can play against better competition, you'll get better. No, that's too simplistic.
It's not, that's not the end all be all, because the player will present themselves differently in each one of those environments.
That's right.
And there are different things to be learned by the player in each one of those environments. So it's not just as simple as saying, if you're playing against good competition, you will automatically get better.
No.
You need each one of those play environments to help build a well-rounded player.
Right. You need some challenge and you need some confidence. So now, 5 environments. Why don't you rank them?
I would probably go one-on-one for 1.
You have to have that at some point if you're going to be a shooter.
Yeah. You have to go walk the path, but this person is kind of walking that path with you, but putting these challenges in front of you.
The one flaw in one-on-one coaching is when a one-on-one personal coach is trying to turn everybody into Kyrie Irving or Steph Curry.
Yes.
The number one reason we would suggest that is important somewhere along the way is you need somebody paying attention to your journey over more than just a season. Number 2, everybody needs shot correction.
Yes.
Every good shooter now in this era of basketball has had somebody work on their shot. You don't have to like that. That's the reality of it. Right. Every good shooter's had somebody. All right. So number 2, what would you pick number 2 on the list?
The controlled scrimmage.
Yep, me too.
There are very few opportunities out there that will give a young player the opportunity to put into practice what they are working with their individual coach. The controlled scrimmage gives the player the opportunity to practice that skill in an environment where there is live defense, but a safe environment where whoever's controlling that scrimmage is actually encouraging attempts.
Yes. So a controlled scrimmage, we think, is a very rare thing, sadly, in the world of basketball, where you have a coach live in the scrimmage and they're not looking for what works.
Right.
Hear me. They're looking for what the individual players need for their development. There's positive pressure to make attempts on new skills, but there's not the pressure to find the easiest, quickest way to win, which allows a player to focus on what will help them in the future. Sure. So a controlled scrimmage is all about the future. It's not actually about this moment.
It takes the team needs out. But you do have the interworkings of a team.
Right,
so
right.
Within the scrimmage, you're setting screens and you're playing defense and you're doing all the things, but we're not necessarily playing for the overall success of the team.
Right. In the process of development, probably the most difficult thing for a player to do is to identify when to make a certain attempt. Like reading the defense and recognizing a moment on a newly acquired skill, a mid-range pull-up off the dribble. The hardest part of that is not the pull-up.
Right.
It is identifying when the moment will present itself to take that pull-up. Right?
Absolutely.
So that's the process. That's the thing we think that a controlled scrimmage works on, is identifying the moments that are best for the things that you need to be attempting. What's number 3 on the list?
Number 3, I would actually go with competitive shooting.
I would too. Yeah. So let me tell you what this is. We think this is the most rare thing in the world of basketball, competitive shooting, where you set up a scenario where you'll see it in a practice for a bit of practice sometimes more advanced teams. But as a thing that stands alone as its own thing, I don't know where it exists in the world. We've been experimenting with it.
I have not seen it.
Right.
I have not seen it in my years of playing basketball, teaching basketball, coaching individually and teams. I have not seen a program that's geared only towards competitive shooting.
Right.
So multiple games within a session that's only focused on this team versus this, or this individual versus this.
No defense.
No defense, but we're taking shots, different types of shots, various shots.
So
and keeping track, and it's competitive.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You put a team of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 on one end, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 on another end, and they're competitively shooting to make certain numbers of shots before the others do. And there's kind of like penalties and stuff, like certain times where a team needs to make 10 shots, and then if they make their 9th and they miss the 10th that they shoot, the whole team has to run down and back. Like, there's competitive elements that make it game-like.
Sure.
We've been taking about 6 months to take a really close look at how to create more competitive shooting program opportunities. That we think is very, very special.
That's a hidden gem.
It's where people get game-like pressure on shots, but they're not having to read the defense yet.
Right. There will be a lot of teaching on shooting and the fundamentals of shooting within one-on-one coaching,
Yes.
right? Our number one on the list. Competitive shooting goes very well with this, and the reason why is because with the one-on-one coaching, it's more geared towards the teaching, the aspects of the shooting. Okay.
So one of the goals of competitive shooting is to create as many pressure shots as possible.
Right.
So that a player gets really comfortable with that. So I'd probably list on the list 4 is free play, like pick-up basketball. Now here's why we would list, because number 5 is your team setting. In terms of your development, we'd put free play before your team setting. Here's why. Because once you know what you're trying to do in free play, you actually know how to go get better. Bad free play is when nobody's passing and you're only doing what you already know how to do. Well, if that's the case, that's not even on the list. But we're talking about free play where now you know you need to work on mid-range jumpers. So in free play.
You are committed to doing that.
And then the last one, team setting. You know why I would put this one last?
Why is that?
It would because the team isn't thinking about you.
Not in the least bit.
And they're not supposed to. It's not their job. They do not get hired or fired based on whether you got better.
Right.
They get hired and cheered for based on whether that team wins games.
Take a look at a practice and think about how much time is spent on individual development within a practice.
Right.
It is a very limited amount of time that is spent towards developing individual players. Once the team is brought together in focus and that becomes the main priority, the coach moves to team offense, team defense. What are our philosophies? What are our principles that we're playing under as a group? And there is a small percentage of time that is used for player development.
Yes.
And so if you just simply look at the time aspect, this is why we rank the team setting as so low as being on the individual development for players.
That's right.
Yep.
All right. Well, do what you want with that. You get to take that list and shake it up however you like. But those are, we think, the combination of ingredients that creates the best case scenario. And we've got people who've made that journey with us who we can point to.
Yes.
Where I can think of one of the young players we have has never played on any travel teams, but has done all this other stuff. And the coach begs that player to shoot and to be on, puts him on the court all day long.
Doing just fine.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you.